Hello fear seekers, and welcome back to the channel. In Michigan folklore, there is a creature described as being 7 feet tall with blue or amber-colored eyes. It is said to be a bipedal, canine-like animal with the torso of a man, the head of a wolf, and a fearsome howl that sounds disturbingly like a human scream. Today, we're going to be diving into some disturbing, allegedly true, Dogman encounter horror stories. Now, it is a dream of mine to read subscriber horror stories someday. With that in mind, I'd ask that you subscribe to the channel and like the video so we can make that happen together. If you have any scary stories from your own life, feel free to submit them to the email in the description. I would be honored to read them. Now, without further ado, sit back, ignore the inhuman howls cutting through the night, and get ready to ferment your fears. Before I get started, I just want to say that this is a 100% true story that happened to me and a group of friends back in early July. This is not an attention grab of any sort. The events in which you are about to read may sound like the plot of a horror story, but this is an actual night I lived through. No BS. I'm not an avid poster, so sorry if the post is not up to the usual Reddit standards. I've been working up the courage to post my experience for some time now. It is pretty lengthy, but I believe it will be worth it for you. Please go easy on me in the comments. Like I said, I don't post much at all. So my friends and I often go to my buddy's place just outside of Traverse City, Michigan, a good 5 to 10 times throughout the course of a year, and we usually stay for about 3 to 5 days at a time. There were 6 of us this time around, and all of us were around 23 and 24 years old. This all happened the first night we got there. So we arrived at about 8 p.m, and as soon as we got there, we threw back a couple of beers, played some card games, and listened to music. The night went on, and my friend that owns the place and another guy went to sleep at around midnight. The rest of us 4 decided to have a little bonfire. Bonfires are one of our favorite things to do up there because at night we can usually see every star in the sky, lots of shooting stars as well, and what we believe are UFOs, and we just BS and tell stories. One of the guys we were with had only been there one other time, and it was in the winter, so he didn't get to experience any outdoor activities at night. Since he didn't get to the last time, we made sure he got to see the sky and stuff. So, the property is perched up on a steep hill with woods all around the very steep back and both of the sides. The woods directly behind the house aren't that thick, and you can see the winding road that leads up to the hilly neighborhood. Just beyond the road is a main road and then Lake Michigan, all of which you can see from all areas at the back of the house. The main level has a walkout balcony deck with stairs that lead out to the bonfire pit directly to the right of the home. So anyway, the 4 of us each grab a beer and go down there, and the first thing we notice is that there is a full moon. It was hard to miss because through the trees it looked like a spotlight was shining on us around the bonfire. We were talking around the bonfire, looking at the sky, and we kept bringing up the fact that the moon was so bright. One of my friends said to the guy who has only been up there one other time, let's just call him the new guy, "Have you heard of the Dogman?" We always joke about the Dogman around the bonfire up there. If you don't know about the Michigan Dogman, it is an urban legend, and there's even a song that was made about it that used to play on the radio a long time ago in northern Michigan. So after he said that, I just had this eerie feeling. I kept feeling like I was being watched and hearing things behind me. I was situated so that my back was to the woods, with one friend directly across from me whose back was to the house, and the other 2 were in the middle, facing the steep hill with the thinner woods. Their backs were to the stairs leading up to the deck. Anyway, they were all laughing about the Dogman, and I was just thinking like, nah, I don't want to joke around about that tonight. So one friend says to the other, "You should play him the Dogman song." And I said out loud, "Guys, I don't think that's a good idea. Let's not get him up in here." Kinda jokingly, but not really. They play the song and we are all laughing, but I'm still hearing weird, unusual noises behind me. Not your average branches falling or chipmunks running around. It sounded like a bigger animal to me, and I could tell that the new guy heard it too. It was about 2 a.m. at this point, and they're all on the topic of scary stories and paranormal things, while I'm being pretty quiet and I'm usually the talker of the group. I keep hearing things, and I'm starting to get nervous. The new guy was telling a personal scary story when I heard something big directly behind me. It sounded like something walking, and so then I finally spoke up and asked, "Guys, do you hear that?" They kind of looked at me for a moment, ignored me, and continued on with the story. I heard it again, but I didn't say anything. I kind of just shined my phone flashlight down the hill to the right of me. I didn't see anything. A few minutes went by, and it was still story time for them while I'm on edge trying to keep my cool. I hear the noise again, and this time it was louder, and I say, "Guys, shut up, I hear something big." They get quiet and listen, but nothing. They continue their story. I'm scanning the area from the back right of me to the front right, back and forth. Then all of a sudden I see something walking, something huge. I couldn't make out the shape of it exactly, but the head looked almost like a deer, but with a shorter snout and a wider and rounder head. It was walking straight, heading away from me, parallel to me and the guy across from me, but like 20 feet to the right on the steep decline. There are bushes right on top of the hill, right in front of the bonfire, and its head was clear over them. I stood in the same spot the next day, and I could not see over the bushes, and I'm 5'10". Whatever it wasn't looking at me, it was just facing the direction it was going. There could have been multiple, but I couldn't tell. I glanced at it, freaked the hell out, and grabbed all my stuff while yelling to my friends, "I just saw something. I just saw something. I'm going upstairs. I don't care what you guys do, but I'm going to bed." They were telling me to stay, but I was already making my way to the steps. I calmly said one last time, "You guys can stay. I don't care. I'm going to sleep now. I've had enough." They said whatever and continued talking. As soon as I took my first step up the stairs, I heard the loudest, most monstrous roar from behind me. It was by far the scariest noise I've ever heard in all my life. It sounded like a monster out of a movie. They heard it too and freaked out. I yelled, "Come on, up the stairs!" as I glanced behind me and saw them jump up and run towards me. We all ran up the stairs as fast as we could. When we ran across the deck, and as soon as we passed the first kitchen window, all of the lights in the house went out. I freaked out, turned around towards them, and yelled, "The power went out. What do we do?" I heard one say, "Just go, just go." As soon as we passed the second window, the power came back on. We got into the house, ran down to the lower level, and tried to wake up the friend who owns the place. We were all yelling at him that something was outside and that he needed to get up. He would not budge and just said go to bed. We didn't want to wake up the other guy because we didn't know him that well at the time and didn't want him to think we were weirdos. The four of us gathered in one of the rooms and were shook up as all hell. We asked each other what the hell that thing was. I told them that I had seen something. I went on to tell them exactly what I saw and that I wasn't messing around. We tried to figure out what the hell we should do next and considered leaving and getting a hotel, or just driving 4 hours south back home. We all had the feeling as if something was trying to kill us. We've all never been so scared, and we all love the outdoors. We do a big hiking and camping trip in the Upper Peninsula once a year, but we had never heard anything like that. We were all still talking 100 miles per hour when we hear the Amazon Echo, aka Alexa, a whole 2 levels above us at full volume, which we didn't even have on earlier, say, "Sorry, Alexa cannot connect to the Wi-Fi right now. Please try again later." So we all got even more frantic when we realized none of our phones had service. We calmed down, and after about 5 minutes of silence, and listening for noises, we discussed that if we were going to leave, then we would have to go upstairs anyways and grab the keys. We all manned up and slowly walked up there. Everything was dead silent. No wind, no outdoor noises, no nothing. And the majority of the windows were open in the house. There were a lot of windows on the main level, all of them really big with no blinds or curtains, so if something was outside, it could most likely see us, but we couldn't see it because of the reflection. We decided to shut off all the lights so we could see outside and lock all the doors and windows. We went over to the spare bedroom on the left side of the house and all peeked out the big window to see if we could see anything below us on the steep hill. We didn't see anything, but we noticed something very strange and unusual for this time of night in a neighborhood of mostly elderly folks. There was a car down below on the winding road behind the house, facing our direction with its hazard lights on. We all stared at it for 5 to 10 minutes and were wondering what it was doing. Did the driver see what I saw? Did they hear what we had heard? Did they hit something? This is kind of a private road and neighborhood, so it was just all very unusual, especially because it was after 3 a.m. during quarantine, 20 minutes away from town. It eventually turned its hazard lights off and did a U-turn, which is also very unusual, then flicked its headlights on and went off on the main road. We all agreed that that was weird as hell, then continued our night, looking out the windows, but we never saw anything else. None of us went to sleep that night, and we continued to hear little noises as we were trying to get some shut-eye, but those were probably out of paranoia. When our other 2 friends woke up the next morning, we told them what we went through, but they just laughed and didn't really seem to believe it. We were there 3 more nights after that, but those nights were completely normal. I've even been back there on 2 separate occasions since then, and both times there's been nothing out of the ordinary. All I can say is that I've never in my life experienced fear like that. It felt like I was living in a classic horror movie, and I actually thought I was going to die. P.S. The following day, we Googled and YouTubed all the large animal noises we could think of, like moose, bucks, a black bear, etc., but we couldn't compare it to anything. One of the guys compared it to a car with a V8 engine stepping all the way down on the gas pedal right next to his ear. That's how loud it had seemed. The new guy didn't remember hearing the noise a couple days later, but remembered everything else. Me and the other friend just thought it sounded like a straight-up monster. For the rest of the trip, we all came to the conclusion that it was probably a bear. On our way back home, we did more research and realized the only bear in Michigan are black bears, and they only stand about 5 feet on their hind legs. The figure that I saw looked more like a gray color. Anyways, thank you for reading, and sorry for the length. Please share opinions. What do you think it could have been? Sasquatch? Extraterrestrial? Dogman? Some everyday woodland animal? My Dogman encounter happened on season opener in November of 2013, in the eastern Upper Peninsula of Michigan on family hunting property near a town called Cedarville. The house my husband and I were staying in up there had a big front yard, but other than that cleared area and the gravel driveway, everything else is pretty deep hardwood forest. I also want to state ahead of time that this happened at around 11 p.m., so everything that's beyond the porch lights is pretty hard to see. My husband and I had gone outside to have a cigarette, and we took our rifle out with us whenever we were hanging around outside because there's bear and stuff back there in that area. I was up on the porch still, and my husband had gone down the steps into the yard and was facing towards me when we heard these really heavy, slow footsteps coming up the driveway through the woods. It sounded like a really big man, but there was this weird, heavy breathing too, and the footsteps, even though they sounded like a person, sounded heavier than anything I had ever heard walking in the woods, including full-sized adult bear. My husband looked at me and mouthed, "What the hell?" And I was trying to figure out what it was that I was hearing, but nothing I had ever heard out there in those woods in my whole life matched the size and breathing and gait of whatever this was, so I was confused and shaking my head. My husband isn't a hunter and grew up in the city, so he was completely confused too. I've hunted and tracked basically everything that's indigenous to northern Michigan since I was small, so I was honestly terrified that this animal was a complete unknown to me by sound. It walked out of the tree line at the edge of the yard behind my husband, and it was a lot taller than him. At least 7 feet tall or more, and I'd estimate the weight for its size at around 400 pounds. It was on 2 legs and had super dark black fur that was somehow even darker than the nighttime dark of the woods. It was walking back and forth at that distance from us the whole time this encounter happened, but it would not step into where the perimeter of the porch light was. I had a really hard time making out its torso for that reason, but I saw a wolf-like head and snout with pointed ears that stuck straight up, and instead of front legs and paws, it had really disproportionately long arms and hands. It was on 2 legs this whole time, walking back and forth. I freaked out and grabbed the rifle and just started shooting at it and yelling at my husband to run and get up on the porch, so he did, and then he took the gun from me and told me to find something to use as a weapon and to go inside and hide, so I did. I got a big knife and went and locked myself in our bedroom in the closet and could hear my husband shooting and reloading a bunch for about another 10 minutes. He came in and told me through the closet door that the Dogman had finally run off, but he wasn't sure if it was going to possibly come back, so we were both pretty terrified, and I ended up staying in that closet all night until sunrise with my husband guarding the door with the gun. He told me that he thought I had hit it when I was shooting at first, but the next day we didn't find any blood or hair or anything, which I thought was weird because I really thought I must have shot and wounded it a couple times. It moved incredibly fast though, and was agile enough to run through the brush and stuff without really mowing it down or making a bunch of noise like big animals usually do running through dense underbrush and stuff. The whole encounter was incredibly weird and scary. My husband also said that he did see it sort of hunch over and drop down on all fours a few times while it was running back and forth at the edge of the yard, but that when it ran away for good that night, it was running insanely fast and on 2 legs like a man. We didn't smell anything bad like a lot of people describe when they see these things, and it didn't even leave any noticeable tracks anywhere, even though the thing was so heavy when it was walking up the gravel driveway that I swore the ground near it must have been shaking. We found out later from one of the neighbors that he had seen it too next door the winter before, when it came up on the porch of his cabin and looked in the door window during a party he and his wife had been throwing. He said he heard really heavy footsteps on the porch and pulled back the curtain on the window, and the Dogman was standing there on the other side of the glass looking down at him, but that its fur was white then. I think that's probably because there was snow on the ground at this point in the year. My neighbor hollered at everyone in the cabin and told them what he had just seen, and then everyone decided to make a run for it through the woods to his mom's house next door, since her place was a lot sturdier than the hunting cabin. I've known that neighbor my whole life, practically since high school, and he would never make something like that up. He was scared even while he was just talking about it. I also read somewhere online recently that another family about 45 miles north of our area had a bunch of livestock like cows and horses turn up dead and torn up by some kind of big predator, and that one of the guys in the family saw a giant upright wolf back near his hunting blind during deer season. Which of course freaked me out since we had our experience on season opener. The land butting up to that family's property is hundreds of miles of the Hiawatha National Forest, so it would make sense to me that a big animal would hide in and near a protected area like that when it's hearing gunshots everywhere. My lot and my neighbor's lot also are right alongside state land. My husband and I moved since this all happened, but the experience was so upsetting to me that I constantly researched online to see if anyone else had seen this thing up north and what their encounter was like. I've even heard that there's a small pack of about 4 or 5 of them that live in a state forest downstate in Isabella County that a bunch of locals in the nearby area have seen, and that somebody even saw one at night in downtown Saginaw, Michigan. What scares me about that is the fact that there's no tree cover there, as that's a city. I wonder if people all over the state are seeing these animals because they're getting forced out of their usual hunting territories due to hunting, logging, and mining that's really increased over the years here. If anyone else from Michigan has an experience to share, please let me know, even if you would feel more comfortable sharing them through a private message. I'm also available to talk with anyone who maybe even is just messed up as I am over seeing one of these things, or if anybody has any questions. Be careful out there, everybody. Hey guys, glad to see you made it to the end of the video. I know this was a shorter video than usual, but Dogman stories are harder to get a hold of than you might believe. Have you or someone you know ever encountered any Dogman or other cryptids? Make sure to let me know in the comments below. As always, if you have any scary stories that you'd like to be told, be sure to send them in. Okay guys, that just about wraps up the video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So long, Fear Seekers. I'll see you in the next video.